welcome to episode number 9 of the ISPC Tailboard Talks. My name is Mark, your host. With me today is Jerry, the co-host. How you doing today, Jerry?
I'm good, man. I'm back. I've been on the road. You've done 2 without me.
Yeah, it wasn't the same. we kind of missed the off-the-cuff humor and so on. So we made.
Thank you for holding the fort down, and thank you for saying that, man. It's
we made it work. It was just maybe a little more business-like. We tried to do a little bit of joking, but so today's podcast. Are we just talking the talk? And we'll get into that and kind of what we're thinking there and what we're going to discuss. We have a special guest today. We'll introduce
a great guest
in a little bit. Yep. And can't wait to talk to him. So we'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, Jerry, why don't you give a little shout out to our sponsor for today's podcast?
Yeah. Got to tell you about Bierer Meters. A USA-made, family-operated manufacturer for almost 40 years, Bierer produces the absolute highest quality, lineman-proven, safe, dependable, and accurate voltage and phasing meters, secondary testers as well, and they also manufacture cable identification tools, grounds testers, high-pot tools, custom temporary protective grounds, jumpers, and pole guards, and so much more. Go check them out, BiereMeters.com. If you want to talk to somebody in person, give them a call, 803-786-4839, 803-786-4839, BiereMeters.com, BIERER meters.com.
Awesome. Love Bierer Meters. Use their equipment.
Yeah, those guys are cool.
They got a great facility, family-owned. Been to their facility multiple times. Just had our last podcast with Brent. So yeah, great sponsor and great supporter of us here at ISPC. So, okay. So little change up today in kind of the method we're going to go through this podcast. We're going to jump right into it here with our special guest, and he's going to be part of our ISPC Tailboard Talks today. Our guest today, Mr. Derek Grimes, who is the Director of Safety for Paso Electric in El Paso, Texas. Welcome, Derek. Glad you're able to join us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Hey, Mark, Jerry, how you doing?
Awesome.
Nice to see you guys again.
Absolutely.
Good to talk to you again, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a few months since the conference, right? So. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the last time we all talked.
And you spoke. You actually. Yeah, you were actually on the podcast, on the Roundtable podcast with us for that episode, which was a phenomenal episode, if I do say so myself. I mean, I learned a lot on that episode as well. Good conversations during that Roundtable.
It absolutely was.
So before we jump into our Tailboard Talks today, Derek, why don't you just give us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of maybe a little bit of the journey that you've taken to get where you are today as Director of Safety for El Paso Electric. What did that journey look like for you?
Well, so I've kind of taken several turns, I guess, in my career a little bit.
Okay.
To get to where I'm at today. I was born and raised southern New Mexico. My family owned a business. I was actually born and raised on an airport. I tell people I was flying airplanes before I was driving cars. That's almost the truth.
That's cool.
Being part of a family business, from whatever age, you're working the family business, all the hours, everything, trying to make the living. And so from about 14 years old, my summers, my weekends were working family business. Not a lot of safety back then. I some of the things I look now what I know, I look back at what I used to do, and 14 years old, and I was fueling airplanes and things like that. And, yeah. So.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. So I after high school, I went right in. I had dreams of kind of going into the family business, aviation. Went to school, went to a trade school and certified as mechanic in airplanes, and then went to work for one of the big airlines at the time. Today it's American Airlines, but several others before since then. So
yeah.
But while I was with them, I was in Phoenix for a couple of years with them, and then moved up to Denver and worked there for about a year. And then they decided they were going to close the doors. So had some friends that worked for a utility company, and they were in the power generation side, power production. And because I had turbine experience, I got hired into, I guess, the turbine world and worked at a couple of power plants up in Denver, around Denver, eastern Colorado, and then they had a plant that sits kind of southern New Mexico near where I grew up, so we got to move home and work there for 4 or 5 years. So while I was there, really got involved in safety at the plants, in the plant level, being an operator mechanic. Kind of on the side, I was doing volunteer work, fireman, EMT, all those things. Did that stuff for a dozen years or so too. So really got interested in safety while I was working there. Went to school, got a safety degree in safety. Got my first safety position with Paso Electric about 9 years ago now. I walked in the door as a safety guy, and they said, "Welcome to safety. You're gonna shadow our lineman crews," and I had never done lineman work before that time. And so you're going to shadow them, and you're going to help us make our training program a little more robust. So pretty much did that, followed them, listened to their stories, took pictures, watched videos, took videos, made training, all sorts of things. A couple other projects got me into it. My boss left. I was lucky enough to be promoted to manager, and then my director left, and so now I'm director.
Awesome.
Lots of safety stuff behind me. I spent a lot of time doing it. CUSP, I've got a CSP, different things like that. So here we are today.
And you have a brand new training facility, safety and training facility.
We do. That was a very proud moment for us. It took a lot of time to get there. Really the company putting their money, where their mouth is, and really putting their money into their employees. Facility is beautiful. The building is beautiful. 7 acres. We're finally kind of getting the outdoor, the field portion built, and people are using it. Now we have people arguing over space in that facility and using the yard. So it's been a really great addition, and really glad to come together.
And that's good, because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, I understand that. Yep.
A lot of times these guys put all this money into facilities, and they become glorified meeting rooms, and nobody uses them properly or to the fullest of their extent. But you guys have really you've created a culture there at El Paso, and that's, I think, kind of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the background there, Derek. It just kind of gives everybody a little idea of, your journey through your career and so on. And I got to get down and see that training center. I have not been there yet, so I got to stick that on one of my travel agendas someday here and get over there. And because I am a huge proponent for, I guess you could call it, real life training centers, right? I am always telling people and preaching that we need to train the way we work, right? Probably my infamous go-to is, hey, if we're going to do pole top rescue, why are we doing pole top rescue on a bare pole? Go show me in the field where there's a bare pole that our guys are going to be working on that they may have to rescue somebody off of, right? It just doesn't exist. There's going to be wires and cross arms and transformers and VCRs or Vipers or you name it, whatever's going to be on that pole. Why are we not teaching our people how to rescue people in real life situations? And it goes all across the board with training. And so I'm glad to see and hear that you guys are kind of taking that next step to allow your people to train in an environment that they're going to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, that's part of it. And it's really important to provide these guys a place where they can fail, right? And not be hurt. And so we've done that, representation of maybe not all our equipment, but a lot of our equipment's out there. They energize it with the Timson trainer.
Yep.
So it gives them real life experience with that as well. So, we're very proud of the facility.
Awesome. Well, today's ISPC Tailboard Talks is the core elements of an effective safety program. So I figured this was a very relevant topic to have a discussion with you, Derek, as far as your background and where you stand today in your career as director of safety. And so we'll touch on some of this stuff, we'll talk about it, and we'll go from there. So not all this necessarily has to do with training itself, right? But I think think there's 5 elements here that we're going to touch on. Not saying there isn't more, but I think some of these are very key to having a constructive and an open safety program that can guide our workers. So the first thing that I have here is obviously good safety conversations, right? And establishing that good two-way dialogue with your people, you as the safety professional, supervisor, or even leader, right? It could be a field leader. Being a good listener, right? Allowing your people to voice their concerns and the issues they may have. Ensure, another thing about these conversations is ensuring our people are not going to get in trouble for raising concerns, right? And then the fact that we need to follow up on those concerns, right? I've been in companies where concerns get raised and they kind of just fall on deaf ears, right? And so maybe I guess I'll kind of shift it to you and get your comments or feedback on the maybe building on these or some other things that you think are very important when it comes to having those good conversations around safety.
Yeah, absolutely. The communication, just in general, I think it would solve a lot of problems if we did a better job at that. So I know in many cases, when events happen, communication is oftentimes maybe not a direct cause, but a contributor to incidents. So, but yeah, allowing the employees to be participate in your safety programs and building your everything, your policies, your procedures. I think that's pretty important. They need to have the method to be able to communicate, issues. You mentioned a culture earlier, Jerry. The culture has to be one where employees feel comfortable being able to communicate those things too. And it's something that I've learned in this is you think that you've got it fixed, and the minute you turn your head to something else, things like that will come back to get you. So, good communication, it really kind of starts, you have to be a good listener, give the employees the time and the respect, and, let them communicate to you. Sometimes you just, as a leader, especially, you need to just, close your mouth and keep your opinions and let them give their opinions. And a lot of the times you can hear things, and if you really pay attention, you're going to hear maybe even what's behind the words, right? The emotion and things like that comes with it. So building trust with your employees up front. The position I'm in now, I don't have as much opportunity to get out in the field and visit with the employees directly as much as I used to when I was in the safety rep position. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing I hear from all the employees is, I don't see you as much. Where you been? Mm-hmm. So, well, unfortunately the meetings keep me tied up, but we've got good employees, good safety people that are doing that job now. So, but really it's all about that. And I tell you, I kind of mentioned trust there. I tell people all the time when they kind of ask me, leadership, what are some things that you can do as a leader, especially a new supervisor? If you go out with your employees and you allow them to teach you what they do, allow them to brag about their trade, let them show you what they're proud of, that helps drive the conversations a little bit. It really builds trust. I don't think there's anything out there that will build trust relationships between employees and leadership. And at the same time, I think it could break that too. If you're not keeping your word. You mentioned, kind of getting back to people, if they have follow-up on concerns. I learned that lesson early in my career as well, that if you don't follow up, and even if it's not the answer that they don't want to hear, right, or if it's the answer they don't want to hear or not the one they do want to hear, that they'll respect you for that at the end of it. So just the fact that you didn't forget about them is really a key to communication and building that trusting relationship.
Yeah, and I wanted to just follow up on something you said there, Derek, that sometimes you just need to let them vent. And another thing when it comes to those safety conversations is keeping it from getting personal, right? It's you're your workers, a lot of times they're venting or bringing issues or concerns to supervisors or people further up the management food chain, because for them it is personal, and it's their safety or their coworkers' safety. And we as safety professionals, leaders, those type of people need to make sure we're not taking that personal, right? And that it doesn't turn into us turning that deaf ear because we're tired of hearing it or those types of things. We really need, it's all business. It's really just our people wanting to make it better. And I think that's a key that we as not only frontline managers, supervisors, et cetera, but as you know, you get up into your level, directors and above, a lot of times people or workers don't get the opportunity or as much of an opportunity to talk to people at that level of the organization. And I think sometimes those people think or feel that they're being attacked almost by our frontline people, when really they're just trying to voice their legitimate concerns and make it better for everybody out in the field.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I had one of my former managers when I first started in the safety world. He was a very great mentor to me. One of the things he used to tell me when you were having these conversations is you have to allow for the emotional minute. And his point with that was when, kind of to your point too, when people are emotionally involved in a discussion, right? It's a personal thing to them. And so sometimes the best answer is just tell them, you know what, we need to calm down a little bit. Well, let's get back together in half an hour. Let's take a break, separate, get back to it, and then give us. Sometimes that might be a day, maybe it's a couple of days. I don't know. It depends on the situation, I guess. But I really kind of took that. I'll always remember that because he used to tell me allow for the emotional minute, and there's more truth to that. As a leader, I was thinking one of the experiences that I've had, as you kind of build yourself in your leadership roles, this organization has given a lot of training, a lot of input, a lot of information, and there's programs out there that we've done that kind of helps you understand individual personalities, understand how people think through things, just different types of things. I think ISPC, I think they do like a DISC thing. We've done insights. There's all sorts of different things that are out there, and I can tell you, I think that's probably helped me in a leadership position. And when you're having conversations, and especially when you're having difficult conversations, understanding how that person thinks, how they dissect information, and how they're going to respond, how they like to receive information, all those different things that go into it. I know a lot of people sometimes just think, well, it's just an HR class we're sitting in, but really that information is really good, and if you take it and use it to your advantage, it can really make a difference.
Yeah. Okay. So I think next I want to jump into really covering the types of safety conversations, and in my mind, there's really two of them. So you have your general safety conversations, right, that happen all the time in the field, whether it be from worker to worker, worker to supervisor, worker to manager, manager to supervisor, safety professional to workers. It really doesn't matter. But I think one of the keys when it comes to those conversations is asking those open-ended questions to gain that understanding. You mentioned when you first moved into the safety role at El Paso, one of the biggest things that you did was went out and visited crews and saw what type of work they did and listened to their feedback. And I think it's so very important, rather than, I don't know, I shouldn't say everybody has. I know I've been in organizations where the safety was more of a, direct one-way conversation, right? So that those questions and answers and clarifying questions to engage the workers and really get to the bottom of what the concern is doesn't always happen. What was your situation like when you went out there and started visiting with those workers, and what did that look like? What were the conversations like?
The culture in our company has changed. I think the culture in the industry has changed, especially in recent years. There used to be a lot of that, really kind of a compliance focused type of a safety approach. The conversations are changing, and there's a lot of people who are kind of helping us shift towards that, right? Making a safer workplace, kind of giving the soft landing zones and those kind of things. Giving the positive feedbacks, those kind of things. That stuff's really important. Employees, sometimes the conversations can be difficult, but if you treat it with respect and you understand. And again, we kind of go back to the first points at the beginning of the conversation here, allowing them the time to give their opinions and express their views. Having good factual information, that helps.
Yeah.
When you can point to something and say, look, this is not correct because of this. Things like that help them understand, right? I was kind of listening to the book from the Reasons Why, or whatever it is. I forgot the name.
Starts with the Why.
Starts with the Why. Yeah, that was very popular.
Yeah.
A year ago, right?
Yeah. Good book.
For sure. But that it really goes to a lot of that. When you're having to have difficult conversations, there can be a positive spin on things too. When I go out into the field, I always look at what they're doing. First off, if they're doing something wrong, but they're in a compromised position, it's not the time to come up and start yelling and creating that that bad vibe. Sometimes it's a tap on the shoulder, just a wave, or a motion. Hey, finish up, come down here and talk to me. The employees appreciate that. I've kind of found that too, right? So it's really your approach to it. And then it's just being polite and really, something that Mac Turner's always said in a lot of his things is you really have to, show them that you appreciate and show that you care. I'm here and I'm doing this because I care about you and I care about your safety. And what you're doing, is not the safest way to do that. There's a lot of ways to do things. It's better if you take it from that approach. You're not a cop. Right? There used to be the cops coming to get me, right, on the safety guy. It's the safety guy or the cop. Which one are you going to deal with? But that's nothing against our law enforcement folks. We're trying to move away from that perception when it comes to safety. I could tell you a story in this training center. It happened a few months ago. We were kind of getting to the point where we're building out our backyard, our playground back there, and there's a nice road that goes around it. And one of my folks had taken me out, and we were showing me. And as I was walking out the door, I didn't have my PPE on, and some employees from across the yard who were in the middle of a training, they started yelling, "You need to get your PPE on." The safety rep that was with me kind of, well, you know what, boss, you're right. We need to get your PPE on. I have no problem with it. We walked inside. My employee was almost a little apologetic for him, and I told him, I said, that's exactly what we want, and I have no hard feelings. And we have a little bit of an award system. We have a coin that we customize every year. It's a safety coin. There's a limited amount. And I pulled one out of my bag. I said, I want you to go give that to that employee when he's done with his training, because that's exactly the culture that we need. Yeah. And so, So it's all about the communication, the conversations, and it's from the start, building the trust up front.
Well, and it all goes back to the conversations and people wanting to feel appreciated. If your efforts, and we had this conversation a couple of podcasts ago, if somebody, you tell somebody, okay, great, you're in charge, this is your responsibility to be safe and to keep everybody else safe around you, right? And then somebody is doing something and they shut it down, or they bring it to somebody's attention, and then it's immediately poo-pooed on by everybody above them. They're never going to do anything again.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that. So you have to, and you've created that culture, and you have to perpetuate that, and have those conversations and have those little awards and have that appreciation and just the honesty and the letting people know that, look, man, I appreciate the fact that you're looking out for me and your brothers and sisters on the line and everybody around you. Because as soon as that deviates, as soon as you get away from that, human nature is going to be like, well, they don't care, so I'm not going to care.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Before we move forward, I just wanted to touch. You mentioned it, Derek, and I wanted to touch on that feedback conversation because it's ever so important in the realm of safety, right? If we're not giving that constructive feedback, we're never going to improve, right? I stumbled upon a statistic that says negative feedback is 2 to 4 times more powerful than positive feedback, however, in a negative way. And so limiting that negative feedback, and I'm not saying that we never have to give, I'll use negative lightly. I like the word constructive better. Not that we never have to give that constructive feedback, try to change habits or bad habits, right? But there is a way to do that positively. And the outcome normally of putting that positive spin on that feedback conversation is just going to be tenfold on what you would get versus just saying, what the heck are you doing, man? Get your safety glasses on, or whatever the case may be, right? And so I guess I can't stress enough the moving away, like you said, from that cop mentality and I'm here to find you doing something wrong, and I'm gonna tell you what you did wrong, and I'm not gonna tell you what you did right, and those type of things. And I think our industry, when I came into this industry back in the early 2000s, that's kind of where we were. And I think I would say, from my experience and getting around and seeing different companies, that that is probably the one-off now, right? I think most of our industry has moved towards that constructive type of culture where we're trying to be more positive and give more positive feedback and correct actions and behaviors in a more positive manner. And I know you mentioned earlier that's really where El Paso has kind of transitioned to as well.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's
it's not an easy task.
Yeah, it takes time, and it, the big piece of that too is for every probably dozen. This isn't a statistic. I'm just coming out of it in my head here, but probably for every dozen positives, one feedback can knock out a dozen positive feedback.
Yep.
And really the negative experience, right? If an employee doesn't feel like you're listening to them, or if they don't have the right input, or if they feel like their input's not warranted, it can have that effect too.
Yeah.
And the coaching, to be a leader, you really have to be a coach. So you have to be willing to make those corrections. You have to understand how to, how to explain where things. That's something that a lot of leaders fail to do as well. Is explain why it's wrong, right?
Yep.
And what's wrong, and then on the other side of that, explain a better way, or provide an opportunity for the employee to grow and find that better way, right?
Yeah.
So
the why is so important. Yeah. It just can't be stressed enough.
Speaking of stressing things enough, I can't stress enough about our sponsor and how cool they are and how good they are. So let's take a second. Bierer meters, they have something that is totally different than anything else. They have their USA Utility Support Assistance, and it's Bierer's one-of-a-kind, no-cost service to the industry, including professional customer service, technical support, repairs and calibration, live line conferencing, on-site field training. They'll come speak at your tool or work methods committee meetings, safety conferences, and seminars. And they also have an exclusive 30-day tool trial. Now, nobody else does this, guys, and I'm serious about this. Call them and find out, because if you call this number I'm fixing to give you, they will answer. Bieremeters.com is the website, 803-786-4839, 803-786-4839. If you want to get them on the phone, if you prefer email, I know some of the younger generation is the email or text only. You can email them customer_service@bieremeters.com, and that is BIERER meters.com.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. They do have an awesome, that 30-day tool trial. I personally use that. It's an awesome thing. Again, I'm not aware of anybody else that's doing that. And so that's an awesome feature. So
we had Brent come by a couple of months ago and spend some time with our linemen. Just an awesome experience.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he's really got that safety. It's a 3-tier safety presentation he does now. And, he's really honed that to quite the experience, and I've heard a lot of good feedback about that from others as well.
And we've talked about the things we do and doing it for the right reasons. You know, we're in safety for the right reasons, and we're in training for the right reasons. They're in it for the right reasons. Brent is truly sincere in the fact that he wants to keep everybody safe, and I appreciate that, and everybody else does too that I've talked to, especially in his Ecos thing is just taking off like a rocket. Just
and
stuff.
no cost to the end user. I mean, you can't get any better than. There's no excuse. You can't say, "Oh, we can't afford that," or you just don't have an excuse, right? So take advantage of it.
No reason to avoid it.
So speaking
of not avoiding,
right there, you beat me to the punch. So another statistic I found when I was doing a little research for this podcast, 93% of employees say their work group is currently at risk from a safety issue that is not being discussed. So, some of the things, I'll just throw this out there, and then Derek, I'll kind of turn it to you to get a little feedback from you. But some of the reasonings or the rationalizations for avoiding these safety conversations and using our safe work practices, right? The get it done mentality, right? Justifying it by, hey, I got to get this work done by tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. We can talk about that. Those people that maybe have a skills deficit. Just this once, right? I can get away with it just this once, but we know what that leads to. This is overboard, right? Some people think the work procedures and the safety rules that we have in place as companies is excessive. It's just not needed, and we all know that's not the case. And then, the other one is you want to be a good team player, right? You justify the shortcut or the not doing every step the way you're supposed to because you don't want to be seen as that outcast to the rest of your team, right? Just do it. Just do it this once. That's all we're asking. So I guess, when you, again, kind of back to when you started your safety journey at El Paso there, Derek, and maybe even to a little extent today yet, what's your, I guess, feedback on seeing some of these things in the workforce that people are avoiding having that tough conversation, right? I see the guy doesn't have his gloves on when he's cutting, or he doesn't have his safety glasses on when he's grinding, but he'll be all right. It's only this time, right? You keep right on walking. Yeah,
I think there's a couple of more there that we could put in. It's not my job. You hear that, right?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
And then,
yep.
We've always done it that way. Those are. Oh, I do too. So, yeah, I do too. All that kind of leads to the conversations and being able to explain why we need to make adjustments or changes if that's what needs to happen. I mean, that's almost an attitude and a culture in itself, right? When you're hearing things like that, and even today, it's hard for a business, right? When you're focused on production and productivity, and you can really get hyper focused in that. And then it's not that. A lot of times I don't think it's that people are, not that they're avoiding things on purpose, not that they're, purposely refusing to do the safety thing or take that extra moment to do what needs to be done. I think they just get very focused and very complacent in things. So, as a leader,
Ooh, that word.
that's a big word, right?
Yeah, there's another big one.
Yeah. That's one of the things we've done here is we've implemented another program that it's really kind of focused on having the individual kind of take a look at themselves and recognizing hazards, recognizing, risks and trying to avoid some of those things. So, but yeah, that's kind of back to the communication piece of that. You have to have a culture where people can bring those things, to the forefront as well. And I know even today, and in you get a crew that's made up of journeymen and experienced employees, and there's certain cultures out there. You pair them up with apprentices or say maybe somebody that's new or inexperienced. There's some intimidation factors there too. So this is really where supervisors and really senior employees. I think it's important on the training aspect. Something that we've concentrated this year with our senior employees is a little bit of leadership training from that perspective, right? Because everybody can be a leader in whatever position you're in. You don't have to be making CEO decisions, but at the same time, looking out for your brother and some of those things. That's all really critically important, especially in the hazardous environments that we work in.
Sure.
Well, and we talked about the team player when you mentioned that are you a team player? They don't want to speak up because they want to be part of the team. They want to be accepted. This is one of those industries like the military, like police, like firefighters. It's very closed in. So if you're new to this industry, you have to earn your place in it. It's just like being in the military, being part of a platoon or a fire team or whatever. You have to earn your place in that. You have to be trusted by the people who are already there. So you do things to be trusted or to be accepted by the group. So that's a big one for the new guys. The new guys have to be encouraged that they are a team player if they speak up. They have to. It has to be known that they can speak up, that they can make that call. The get it done and the just this once and this is overboard. The if things we could get so much more done if we weren't doing this. Those are typically that's the seasoned guys that are there that they feel like they're being held accountable for the deadlines for the jobs being done. So there's different tiers, and you have to attack each of those tiers, and you got to do it from the top down, from the seasoned guys, and let them know that hey, yeah, we have deadlines, and we have deadlines for a reason, but if you miss it because you're being safe,
And that's a little bit of a different culture too.
Yeah, good point.
Something I've noticed in the industry is that there is a culture of the past, and you still see it with like contract crews and things like that. That it's really, I say, I'll tell you, you don't tell me, kind of a mentality, and you mentioned a very kind of a military type of a reference there, and I've listened to our senior guys, 20, 30 years experience, and they'll tell you that that's how it was. And if you didn't do what they said when they said it, then, you didn't cut the mustard. So the generation of employees we have coming in now are a lot different, and they don't like that. So you really have to understand that and be willing to kind of fit to their need and their level on some things, right? They're extremely bright, very intelligent, very fast on things that they do when they understand it. And the way that the next generation absorbs knowledge is just incredible.
And juggling that between the two generations or the multiple generations. I mean, the seasoned guys and the new guys coming in, as a manager, Derek, that's something. Let's not dismiss that ability as a manager to do that, to have those conversations with both of the work sets or the multiple work sets, the medium guys, the older guys, and the new guys coming in, and disseminate the information in a way that they're all going to get it and they're all going to participate, in form.
The more experienced employees, they're willing to have the hard conversations too, and that they're going to do it and they're going to do it right to your face, and you're going to have a conversation. And so the younger ones, the next generation, I don't think they like the confrontation piece of it so much. So you almost have to find a way to make them feel comfortable so they will open up to you, I guess is kind of maybe a good way to put it. So
yeah, no, it's key. It's definitely understanding, how you need to communicate to the different generations. There's definitely, it's not a one size fits all for sure. And I think that kind of, goes into our next element here. We got two left that I want to touch on, and not this next one we don't have to really spend a whole lot of time on, but, I think it's an important one, and using stories or past experiences or things you've seen happen to people to share with other people, right? And sharing those, stories, whether good or, unfortunately, most of them that we share when it comes to the safety side of things are things that have negatively happened to people, right? To try to get other people's focus on, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that because now I know somebody that lost a hand because of that, or lost an eye, or got electrocuted, or whatever the case may be. So, but I think the power of telling those stories and sharing those stories with our workforce is a powerful thing.
That's where your experienced employees really, really help, right? Is because they could take it, they can take a situation and refer back to an experience that they've had, in the industry. It's directly related. If you don't have that type of experience or spent the time on the pole, so to speak, sometimes it's difficult to convey that to you. I've had a couple of instances. I'm not a great trainer, right? I can get up and I can speak and I can do public speaking, but I've had a couple of times where I'll start sharing a story from my firefighter days, and you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, I shouldn't be saying this, right? You're talking about this or that, but you kind of watch the crowd and you watch, the responses, and people are really engaged. So you're really triggering that emotional piece of it, where you can tie something and relate it, to an experience that they had, and it's really impactful. Stories really impactful. So.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, and maybe I don't know if I go to say the most important, but one of the most important is the whole concept of leading by example, right? And you told a little story a little while ago, Derek, about the fact where you came out into the yard and didn't have your proper PPE on. You weren't leading by example, and they called you out on it. And that's that culture of feeling okay to call out, manage upwards. I shouldn't say manage, but, give constructive feedback upwards. That's a lot in a lot of organizations. That's a tough thing to do, is call out a director or a VP or somebody like that. Hey man, you need to get your hard hat on, or you need to get your safety glasses on, or whatever the case. And I think the strongest way we can encourage workers to engage in our safety programs is to lead by example, right? We said, are we just talking the talk? That's the title of today's podcast. And really, that meaning that, are we just saying we're doing these things, or are we really doing these things? Are we really out there walking the walk and doing what we're supposed to, right? Wearing our PPE every time, not just when there's other people around, but when I'm out there working by myself. Am I doing it? Am I walking the walk, or am I just talking the talk? Are we using our safety work procedures? Again, are we using them when everybody's watching, or are we using them when we're still working alone, right? Being respectful when we're communicating, having that caring attitude we already talked about, and then being willing to accept that constructive feedback, right? You yourself said earlier about that incident with your PPE. You gave positive feedback back to that employee for being willing to give you that constructive feedback, and then you being willing to accept that and say, hey, just because I'm the director doesn't mean I'm above wearing my proper PPE. You got me. My bad. I'm going to get it. You did the right thing. Kudos to you. And so I think this leading by example is just, if not the most important, right at the top of one of the most important things we need to do to set the example for our people of, walk in the walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just
And
talk the talk.
the crews, the groups, the work crews, the ones that have the strongest culture, even within our organization here, they are the ones with the supervisors and their management, their leadership as a whole is just truly engaged in all the processes. So, and it is something as easy as putting on a hard hat and a pair of safety glasses at times. And there's a lot of people who in leadership positions. Sometimes I guess maybe they don't recognize that, but that's kind of the overall culture, right? A real positive safety culture needs to be led from the top and grown from the roots, and it's the guys in the middle that you really have to focus on, because they're the ones that get both sides of it. But at the same time, there's a reason, is because they can have the most impact for both sides of it too. So kind of talking on the supervisor level as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. And developing the relationships with your employers, or your employees, is critically important. We've done a lot here to build good, positive relationships with our union, representatives and things. We've had times when they hate us, and we've had times when they're bragging about us. But either way, I can truly say it's a partnership, and so that goes a long way too. So it's not just a leader that has to have their hard hat on. It's everybody, even on a crew. The most senior person on a crew, if everybody else is seeing, everybody else is wearing a hard hat and a safety glass, they're doing what needs to be done. They're going to be pressured to do that. That peer pressure's a lot of times is a negative thing, but it can be a positive thing too. So,
absolutely,
it can be powerful. Yeah.
And you mentioned culture. Before we get too much further, before we close out, I got to tell you, the electric culture of safety. Derek, you mentioned culture. You mentioned grassroots. That's exactly what ECOS is doing. It brought to you, Brent from Bierer Meters started this whole thing. Electric culture of safety, grassroots nationwide safety partnership, bringing the electric utility industry together in unity, building a line team. ECOS partners sharing at no cost to your line crews, sharing their knowledge, experience, expertise, and passion for the common goal of ensuring that our heroes of light return home safely to their family crew when the task is complete. ECOS is now over 12,000 partners. That's amazing. 12,000 partners with monthly lineman safety national webinars with relevant topics on communication, leadership, organization, training, etc. And then they run the gamut of those topics, man, and it is amazing. You can partner up by emailing safetytraining@biermeters.com or go to electriccultureofsafety.com, electriccultureofsafety.com. Together, we're going to change the electric culture of safety, and it's an amazing thing. Derek, I think have you spoken at ECOS yet?
I haven't spoken at ECOS. Brent was down here, as I mentioned earlier. And interesting, our topic kind of being a conversation, something from leadership. When you bring Brent in and you partake of some of the training that he does, don't be afraid to call him back and get his opinion on what he saw with your crews. We did that. And I was really surprised that it wasn't me. It was one of my supervisors that reports to me, but they called and had a nice conversation with him after the fact. And my supervisor was surprised that he had mentioned that not a lot of people do that. So just a great wealth of knowledge.
Well, I guess it's come to that point. The point we always dread, but I guess all good things have to come to an end. Derek, it was a pleasure having you on here today, giving us your insight and, helping this conversation around the core elements of a safety program. Great things I think you're doing with your organization down there. Was glad to have you on.
I absolutely did. I appreciate the opportunity. Come on over to El Paso anytime you guys want to. We'll host you.
I got to get back over there.
It's on my list of stops when I can get to the west side of Texas. So
Derek, any last words to the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to hear this? I mean, anything you want them to know or to take away?
Just listen to your employees. Be willing to have a conversation. That was really kind of the theme of this, I think, this conversation here. So it's really important. Never stop growing. You can never stop learning. So
outstanding. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate you. In closing, I got to tell you, the views and opinions shared in this podcast are the personal viewpoints of the participants and may not necessarily reflect the stance of ISPC, the Institute for Safety and Powerline Construction, its staff, or its guests. It is highly advised to consult your company management before implementing any actions or policy changes. Also, guys, please support the sponsors bringing this content to you. Bieremeters.com, Bierer meters.com. And for more episodes of the ISPC Tailboard Talks, subscribe in your favorite podcatcher and be sure to leave a review. We'd love to hear from you. For more information on ISPC and our services, visit ispconline.com. ispconline.com. Thanks again, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Mark, Derek, appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you later. See you on the next episode of ISPC Tailboard Talks.